The top stories tonight and why news. Local governments may appeal their COVID-19 risk classifications before President Duterte decides on community quarantine in July.
An association of private schools in the country assures there will be no tuition hike for school year 2020-2021.
Cebu City's critical care utilization nearing full capacities, the health department says.
Solons plan to extend Bayanihan law as easiest solution to the health crisis.
Australia on track and keeping COVID-19 curve flat, says Prime Minister Scott Morrison.
Australian and New Zealand women's soccer players pump their fist in celebration after their joint bid for the 2023 Women's World Cup was confirmed.
Good evening, Philippines and the world. Today is Friday, June 26, 2020. I am Herlene Delgado. Join us in the next 45 minutes as we deliver today's top stories around the globe.
We are also seen in 1,935 satellite monitoring centers nationwide and via live streaming worldwide through the UNTV News and Rescue social media accounts and our website, untvweb.com. I'm Angelo Castro III.
Former Senator Ramon Revilla Sr. has passed away at the age of 93. This was confirmed by his son, Senator Bong Revilla Jr. In an official Facebook post, the younger Revilla says his father succumbed to heart failure at around 5:20 this afternoon. Some lawmakers and the palace have expressed deepest condolences to the Revilla family.
Local government units are now given the chance to appeal their COVID-19 risk classification before President Rodrigo Duterte decides on the community quarantine in July. Rosalie Cos tells us why.
Based on the Interagency Task Force on COVID-19's recent decision, local governments are given the chance to appeal their COVID-19 risk classifications. They may do so President Rodrigo Duterte decides next week on the community quarantine across the country for the month of July.
Pagkatapos po nito, isasapinal po ang rekomendasyon ng IATF sa Presidente at ang Presidente po mismo ang mag-aanunsyo.
The new IATF resolution includes permitting the operation of restaurants and cafes in hotels and clubhouses in areas under General Community Quarantine or GCQ until 9 p.m., but with a limit of 30% venue capacity only. Social distancing measures and other minimum health protocols issued by the Department of Tourism, Department of Trade and Industry, Department of Labor and Employment, and the Department of Health shall be observed. Visits to open-air memorial parks and cemeteries are also now allowed, but shall be limited to not more than 10 persons per group. The number of groups allowed at any given time shall be left to the discretion of the management of the memorial parks and cemeteries, taking into consideration the minimum public health standards and social distancing. Rosa Licos, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
Meanwhile, the number of COVID-19 infections among Filipinos in the Middle East, including the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, is high. Based on the recent report of the Philippine Embassy and KSA, more than 100 overseas Filipino workers have died due to the infectious disease. Now, the Philippine government, through the Interagency Task Force against COVID-19, has decided to repatriate their remains.
Sinuportahan ng IATF, ang DOLE at ang DFA na sa desisyon na pauwiin ang lahat ng mga OFW na namatay dahil sa COVID-19 at kasama na nga po dito yung mga namatay dahil sa COVID-19.
President Rodrigo Duterte and other ASEAN member state leaders attended the 36th Asean Summit commencement. A different Asean Summit opened today with the theme Cohesive and Responsive ASEAN. Our Malacanang correspondent Rosalie Cos is back to tell us why.
For the first time in history, an Association of Southeast Asian Nations or ASEAN Summit was held through a video teleconference. The 36th ASEAN Summit, chaired by Vietnam, opened today to run until November 2020. The summit focused on the coronavirus pandemic response and recovery, which includes economic integration.
Ang naging panawagan ng marami sa kanila ay yung mas matindi pang economic integration dahil ito po ang susi para magkaroon ng mas mabilis na pag-recover dito sa COVID.
ASEAN member states are also urged to have common responses in containing the coronavirus and to resort to digitalization. There are at least 136,000 confirmed COVID-19 cases in Southeast Asia, with Indonesia reportedly having the most cases at over 50,000. Two ASEAN member states also discussed the possibility of business travel resumption within the region, subject to necessary quarantine and health protocols. Aside from this, President Duterte and other fellow ASEAN member state leaders highlighted the importance of adherence to the rule of law to ease tensions in the South China Sea and pushed for the code of conduct. The Philippine chief executive also underscored the importance of maintaining peace and order not only in the region but all over the world.
Iwasan ang pagdadagdag pa sa tensyon at lahat po dapat ay sumunod sa kanilang responsibilidad sa ilalim ng international law, lalong-lalo na po sa 1982 UN Convention on the Law of the Sea. Hinimok po ng Presidente ang lahat ng bansa to adhere to the rule of law at saka dun sa mga commitments nila to international instruments, kasama na po ang 2002 Declaration on the Conduct of Parties in the South China Sea.
The 36th ASEAN Summit was scheduled for April in central Vietnam's Da Nang but was put off due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Rosa Licoz, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
A new testing facility owned by Manila City can now operate. The city government can even save funds with this new COVID-19 testing center. Here's why from Ray Pelayo.
Manila City Government can now test additional 200 samples a day through its new COVID-19 testing laboratory in Santa Ana Hospital, thanks to a license to operate issued by the country's health department valid from June 25 to December 31, 2020. It is the first testing lab owned by the Manila City Government. Mayor Francisco Isko Moreno Domagoso said the city usually spend 5,000 to 8,000 pesos in other testing centers, compared with less than 2,000 pesos with this new facility. What the new laboratory can examine daily is an additional to 100 to 500 samples other testing facilities can process in a day. Mayor Domagoso revealed the city will offer the new testing lab services to other cities in the National Capital Region.
So kung ang Maynila makakatulong sa iba pang syudad na hindi naman namin napapabayaan yung pangangailangan namin, then so be it. Yes, the answer is yes. We can extend this to anybody.
The nation's capital has so far recorded over 1,200 cases of coronavirus infections.
As you see the reports, no, nag-stagnate. So far nag-plateau. But again and again, daily, meron pa ring nahawa.
Mayor Domagoso enjoins barangay officials and residents to impose and follow stricter anti-coronavirus measures. Ray Pelayo, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
32 cruise ships remain docked at the Manila Bay anchorage. According to Philippine Coast Guard Commandant Vice Admiral George Orsabia Jr., most seafarers have disembarked while others still await the results of the RT-PCR test for coronavirus infection.
Marami nang naibaba. We have been very responsive in doing our job in ensuring that these Filipino seafarers can integrate with their family.
Vice Admiral Orsabia added there have been improvements in the system of repatriation of our nationals from coronavirus-hit countries. In particular, is processing the return of overseas Filipinos from their country of origin. They can already register for repatriation through the Red Cross website. They will just have to fill out the electronic case investigation form, or ECIF, on the Philippine Red Cross website, ecif.redcross.com.ph, prior to their scheduled arrival in Manila. That's ecif.redcross.com.ph.
Pagdating nila dito sa Pilipinas, dahil mabibigyan niya sila ng QR code, yung QR code lang ipakita nila dun sa Coast Guard na mag-process sa kanila, iskanin yung QR code nila, and all the information will already reflect doon sa computer or laptop. Then they will be given a corresponding barcode. Yung barcode nila will be their identity already. So hindi na nila kailangan pa mag-fill up ng mga forms na mano-mano yung ginawa dati. Kaya naiiwasan natin ngayon yung mga errors.
Meanwhile, PCG Commandant Ursabia further added, another development is that if a repatriate tests negative for COVID-19, they will have to undergo a 5-day quarantine and then go home to their families, unlike before when they needed to stay for up to 22 days.
Iba nga, in 3 days, pag negative sila, they can already leave the quarantine facility and be able to join their family. So malaki talaga ang ngayon, ang pagbabago. A lot of improvement, a significant improvement at that.
The PCG continues to assist lead agencies in the all-of-government repatriation efforts. Vice Admiral Ursabia also reported they continue to conduct RT-PCR tests among PCG frontliners to make sure they are COVID-19 free. As of June 25, the PCG has recorded 54 COVID-19 positive personnel, but 42 have recovered. 12 are on their way to recovery. All are asymptomatic.
In preparation for the new normal and faster data gathering on the COVID-19 situation in Masbate, the Provincial Health Office conducted a one-day contact tracing risk communication orientation for teachers and barangay officials. According to Provincial Health Officer Dr. Oscar Acuesta, they cannot accomplish the data gathering alone and finding contacts of people with COVID-19 symptoms. Dr. Acuesta added, it would help a lot if personnel from different agencies and sectors also have adequate awareness and knowledge in contact tracing.
So, kaya nga lahat involved dito kasi mahirap ito eh. Just imagine, isa lang na may, alam mo, nakontak ka ng isang COVID positive. Lahat dyan, ititrace mo. Ha? Ito naman, ititrace mo naman kung sino na ano nito sa family. At saka kukunin mo talaga yung mga pangalan, kung saan yan, pupuntahan talaga yan.
A group of private schools in the country assures there will be no tuition hike for school year 2020 to 2021. Dante Amento will join us tonight to tell us why live. So Dante, why is this group not implementing a tuition hike this coming school year?
Eileen, this move is the response of Federation of Associations of Private Schools and Administrators, or FAPSA, to the Education Department's appeal to private education institutions to defer a tuition increase. Even miscellaneous fees will not go up in private schools, according to the group's president, Eliasardo Casilag.
Nagbawas pa nga kami ng tuition fee yung iba sa amin, no? Yung iba nga sa amin, nagbibigay pa ng ibang items na makakatulong sa mga bata.
Meanwhile, Harleen, Education Department Undersecretary Jessie Mateo said today that DepEd understands the situation of the private schools that rely on tuition payment from their students for their teachers' salary. In fact, Education Secretary Leonor Briones asked the IATF to help the private education institutions. DepEd also appeals to private schools to be transparent in the structure of their tuition and other miscellaneous fees.
Kasi nga po, medyo tataas rin po yung gastusin ng mga pribadong eskwelahan, mas lalo na kung pinatupad yung kanilang iba-ibang pamamaraan ng paggatid para matuloy lang yung pag-aaral ng mga kabataan.
Arlene?
Dante, may I ask how many enrollees are there so far for the school year 2020 to 2021?
Well, Harleen, based on the DepEd's data this morning, a total of 14.4 million students have been enrolled in private and public schools. That number encompasses all regions in the country. That figure is more than 50% of the total enrollment last year of 27 million, Harleen.
So Dante, will the school reopening will proceed on August 24? Is that correct, Dante?
Yes, Harleen, according to DepEd, they have been preparing all the things necessary for the scheduled reopening of classes on the latter part of August, such as the printing of learning materials or modules, specifically for those areas which do not have the access of the internet. And Harleen, enrollment for the school year 2020-2021 runs until June 30. Harleen?
All right, we'll continue to monitor that. Thank you so much, Dante Amento, for that report. And because the coronavirus threat still lingers, distance learning will be implemented for the upcoming school year 2020 to 2021. But what really comprises distance learning? According to the Education Department, there are various learning modalities under the distance learning. One is online, which uses technology such as gadgets and access to the internet and can be categorized as synchronous or asynchronous. There is also the modular distance learning, wherein self-learning modules, whether in print or digital format, will be given to students. Another is the television and radio-based instruction, in which lessons would be carried out through programs. The Education Department says the type of learning modality to be used in a locality will be based on the capacity and situation of learners and teachers.
Ang unang naririnig nga namin, paano naman matututo? Wala kaming internet. So sa bawat sitwasyon ng bata, mayroon tayong inihahaing angkop na paraan ng pag-aaral at pagkakatuto.
Earlier today, we visited Lagro High School in Quezon City to see how they are gearing up for the distance learning. Its principal, Maria Noemi Moncada, said they are not new to the distance learning approach, as they have been doing this when classes are suspended.
Ready naman sila kasi nga ang mga teachers trained. Ngayon, meron talagang hindi natin maaalis yung mga malapit nang mag-retire. Hindi na natin pinipilit yan. Sila ngayon yung mga magmo-modular at voluntary naman.
The school principal added that as of today, around 6,100 students have enrolled for school year 2020 to 2021. 80% opted the online learning approach, while 20% chose the modular learning. Now the teachers in Lagro High School attend various webinars and trainings and simulation of classes through a summer camp.
Ang school po ay ayos ang magkakasama, ang pumili ng online at ang pumili ng module. So may mga magkakasama sila lahat sa isang section, ang mga module at magkakasama naman ang mga online.
Here, school teachers will use the school's computer laboratories for the distance learning modality. However, this would be a huge challenge for the technical vocation livelihood strand, as it requires hands-on training. Good thing, electronic products assembly and servicing teacher Raymond Cruz has found a free website wherein students can design and construct models. As of now, Raymond has 22 students enrolled in the simulation of the course.
Pwede ka mag-simulate ng mga electronic devices na mag-assemble ka po on your own. Hindi lang po na may experience po yung physical na assembly, pero may experience po na yung virtual assembly na po.
Meanwhile, for the modular learning, the school principal said advisors will upload lessons for each week for digital learning, while there will be schedules for parents and guardians of learners to pick up the printed modules. Teachers who volunteered for the modular learning will visit students from time to time to ensure learning competencies. Lagro High School is set to receive tablets from the Quezon City government.
Let's now take a closer look at the updated count of coronavirus cases around the world. The COVID-19 pandemic has now reached a total of over 9.6 million confirmed cases in 188 countries, regions, and sovereignties. That's an increase of more than 179,000 cases from yesterday. Countries across the globe have reported more than 6,000 deaths. Now, the fast-spreading disease has almost claimed 490,000 lives, while an addition of close to 96,000 patients across the globe have recovered from the new coronavirus infection since yesterday. Now, the world's total recoveries have reached more than 4.7 million. Thanks be to God.
Meanwhile, in the Philippines, the Department of Health says that 1,006 new cases were reported today, including 788 fresh cases and 218 late ones. That raises the total confirmed cases of coronavirus infection in the Philippines to 34,073. That is, as of 4 p.m. today, we have lost 12 more patients. But through our fervent prayers, medical interventions, and sacrifices of our medical frontliners, 274 more people have won their battle against the invisible enemy. That brings the total recoveries nationwide to 9,182. Thanks be to God.
After the Department of Health reported on Wednesday that Cebu City is almost a warning zone, today the DOH reported that the city is already approaching the critical level. Our health correspondent, Aiko Miguel, explains why.
Cebu City is nearing a full capacity of its critical care utilization or health capacity. During the inspection, Environment Secretary Roy Simatu and Health Secretary Francisco Duque III this week, the officials found that the critical care facilities in the national capital of Cebu province are 50 to 80% occupied, including intensive care unit beds, ward beds, and mechanical ventilators. Based on the report of the DOH epidemiology team sent to Cebu City, they have seen clustering of cases in some barangays. It means transmission of COVID-19 in those areas is evident.
Na 61 out of the 80 barangays, meron silang bagong kaso in the past 14 days. And out of these 80 barangays na ito, 49 barangays had clustering. So pag sinabi natin clustering, these are 2 or more cases in a specific area.
The DOH highlights some factors. It is now studying those factors to find out if they are the reasons for a continuing spike of cases. One is if the minimum health standards are not strictly observed after easing restrictions in the city. Another is whether there is community transmission or the index cases there are imported cases. The DOH is also studying how protocols there are implemented and what are Cebu City people's customs that may have accelerated the transmission of COVID-19.
Tinitignan natin, paano ba ginawa ang isolation dyan? Paano ba ginawa ang testing dyan? Paano ba ginawa ang tracing of contacts dyan? Like, are there any specific practices na ginagawa ang mga tao dyan? Meron ba silang commonly na ginagawa na nakaka-increase ng transmission? Like, there would be these gatherings na kailangan pinupuntahan because they have this part of a culture or practice in their area.
The DOH will issue concrete information next week as to the reason for the mounting of COVID-19 cases in Cebu City and other areas in Central Visayas considered as hotspots. Aiko Miguel, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
14 General Trias City Cavite police personnel have tested positive for coronavirus disease 2019. They are now in the city's isolation facility. According to Chief of Police Lieutenant Colonel Marlo Solero, it is likely the 14 cops got infected while on duty. This is why General Trias City Police Station conducted a disinfection. Authorities are also finding the contacts of those COVID-19 positive cops. The police station has canceled the issuance of travel authority and clearances. Online application for such documents may be launched within next week. The General Trias Police have requested for augmentation forces from the Cavite Provincial Police Office. The city government continues to remind residents to take the necessary precautions to prevent the further widespread of the deadly disease. The town of Pangil in Laguna Province remains COVID-19 free. Mayor Gerald Aritao attributes the zero COVID status to their compliance with the government's protocols, especially on locally stranded individuals returning to the town. The mayor added they continue to implement a mandatory wearing of face masks. Curfew remains in place. About 2,000 LSIs have returned to the town and not one of them is a carrier of the new coronavirus.
So, ganun pa rin yung aming sinunod na protocol ng mga nauna pa ng ECQ. So, yun pa rin namin sinusunod sa ngayon. Pag may dumating na mga tig-ibang lockdown sa ibang bayan o probinsya, 14 days monitoring kami. At kung may mga OFW na umuwi sa amin, meron kaming isolation unit.
The draft bill for the Bayanihan Law 2 is almost complete. According to House Speaker Alan Peter Cayetano, the bill will also tackle the recovery of different sectors from the COVID-19 pandemic. Vincent Arboleda will tell us why.
If the Bayanihan Law 1 deals with the healing and the uncertainties brought by the coronavirus disease 2019, Bayanihan Law 2 will focus more on the recovery of various sectors. This is what House Speaker Alan Peter Cayetano mentioned earlier when asked by members of the media. The House Speaker reveals the draft bill is 80 to 90% finished as members of the Congress and various agencies continue to discuss matters on the COVID-19 response measures of the country. Bayanihan 2 includes downloading funds to financial institutions like Land Bank and the Development Bank of the Philippines to provide interest-free loans for micro, small, and medium enterprises. Funds will also be appropriated for the procurement of testing materials and medical supplies. The tourism sector will also receive aid. It's just that lawmakers have yet to identify which particular area of tourism will the aid be spent on. The measure will also remove the ability of the executive branch to realign funds without proper process.
Remember, nung unang bayanihan, hindi natin alam mangyayari at overwhelming yung problema. So basically, we gave them the authority maglipat-lipat ng funds. Now we want to be more specific na isabihin nila sa amin saan gagamitin ito.
Cayetano says they are looking at around 140 to 200 billion pesos to fund the Bayanihan Law 2 should it be passed into law. The House leader also mentioned they will also look into the proposed 2021 national budget and identify which part will be the stimulus package for the COVID-19 response.
So we want to enter 2021 fully aware that may mga challenges ang COVID na kailangan i-meet head-on. Paano kung may vaccine? And paano kung hindi ka bibigyan, kung hindi mo babayaran kaagad, di ba? So, kailangan naka-input na yon kaagad.
Budget Secretary Wendell Abisador has earlier mentioned that the proposed national budget for 2021 amounts to 4.3 trillion pesos. Vincent Arboleda, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
The Department of Health underscores that manual disinfection is more effective in killing viruses than using UV light. Aiko Miguel has the details why.
The Department of Health reminds the public on the use of ultraviolet lights or UV lights in disinfecting surfaces. According to the DOH, based on the World Health Organization's recommendation, UV lights are used only to disinfect healthcare facilities.
Ang mga devices na gumagamit ng ultraviolet or UV light para sa disinfection ay angkop para sa healthcare settings. Ibig sabihin, ginagamit lamang po ang mga ito sa loob ng ospital, sa mga clinics.
Health authorities emphasize there is no specific evidence to support that UV lights are effective in killing viruses. Manual disinfection is still a solution.
Alinsunod sa rekomendasyon ng WHO ay hindi po ito replacement o maaring pamalit sa manual na paglilinis at pagpupunas at pagtanggal ng mga contaminants mula sa environmental surfaces.
The Health Department warns that UV lights, when improperly used, can harm the eye, cause skin irritation, and increase risk of developing cancer. It also advises the public to use the right amount of alcohol rub or bleach solution instead based on the DOH guidelines. Aiko Miguel, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
Meanwhile, lawmakers are planning to extend the Bayanihan law as the easiest solution to the health crisis that the country is experiencing. Meanwhile, a lawmaker also urges the president to mitigate between Congress and economic managers to compromise on the stimulus package. Vincent Arboleda will tell us why.
The Bayanihan to Heal as One law expired yesterday, but Filipinos continue to feel the crisis brought about by the coronavirus disease 2019.
Parang business as usual pagdating sa bayarin, pero hindi business as usual pagdating sa kita. Hindi po pwedeng ganun kasi napakadami po ang nahihirapan.
According to House Deputy Speaker and Bagong Henerasyon Party List Representative Bernadette Herrera D, before passing stimulus packages like Create, Arise, and Cures, extending the Bayanihan law is the easiest measure to do. The lady lawmaker also appeals to the president to help them talk to the economic managers on the implementation of the economic stimulus package.
May iba silang point of view, may iba rin po kaming point of view. So kailangan lang po maipag-match po namin yun. Kasi at the end of the day, yung mga kababayan po natin ang nagsasakripisyo.
According to the Deputy Speaker, the economic managers want to put the bulk of the stimulus to financial institutions like Land Bank and the Development Bank of the Philippines so they could offer interest-free loans.
Yes, okay yon. Pero not only that. We also need to support DOLE, we also need to support DSWD, we also need to support a lot of other SMEs pagdating sa mga bagay po na to.
Lawmakers are also looking for sources of funds for the stimulus package. Herrera says that lawmakers are also considering loans as the country's debt ratio is still low and the country can still afford to borrow funds for the sake of the Filipino people. Vincent Arboleda, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
The President has signed Republic Act 11476, institutionalizing the Good Manners and Right Conduct, or GMRC, and values education in the Department of the Education's K-12 program. According to House Speaker Alan Peter Cayetano, as the students acquire skills and knowledge in school, the law seeks to provide a holistic approach for the development of the student, which includes the preservation of Filipino values and character. RA 11476 will replace the Edukasyon sa Pagpapakatao curriculum, mandating the creation of the GMRC subject for grades 1 to 6 and its integration to the learning activities in the kindergarten level. Values education will be a separate subject for grades 7 to 10 and requires integration in teaching classes for grades 11 to 12. Cayetano believes that it is essential to teach students not just to be smart, but also to be good citizens of the country. GMRC was removed from the school's curriculum when the K-12 program was implemented.
Jego, we're on board the UNTV radio mobile booth and we are here in Commonwealth Avenue in Batasan Hills, Quezon City. Let's take a look at the situation on the road. Jego, today's Friday, and so far here in our area we have a light to a moderate traffic from vehicles coming from Elliptical Road going to Fairview. Meanwhile, we are also expecting the same situation on the other side of the road for motorists going to EDSA Quezon Avenue. And for our weather update. The Intertropical Convergence Zone, or ITCZ, is affecting parts of the country. State Weather Bureau Pag-asa says the weather condition will bring cloudy skies with scattered rain showers and thunderstorms over Bicol region, Mimaropa, Visayas, and Mindanao. Possible flash floods or landslides may occur due to moderate to at times heavy rains. Meanwhile, Metro Manila and the rest of the country may experience partly cloudy to cloudy skies with isolated rain showers due to localized thunderstorms. Possible flash floods or landslides may also occur during severe thunderstorms. Camarines Norte is on its way to transforming a dump site into a garden. Residents nearby usually complained about the foul odor emanating from the garbage site, but after a year, this open dump site will become an agricultural land for cultivation. According to Municipal Administrator Joan Christine De Luna, gas management has been conducted and fencing around the area is underway.
After po nitong mga susunod na araw ay gagawin naman po yun pong vegetation and greening. Magkakaroon po tayo ng mga agricultural products na po pwede po nating mailagay para ma-utilize po natin yung buong property po.
Local officials of Diet believe this agricultural land could provide jobs to residents in the future.
And for the news abroad, here's Mariel Latoza live from Perth, Australia. Good evening, Mariel.
Good evening, Diego, and to Harleen as well. How are you, Diego?
We're doing fine, Mariel. How are you, and what have you got for us?
Diego, today, Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison commended the Victorian government in managing the outbreak. Also, I will tell you why the state of California declares budget emergency. While in Bolivia, there is this group called COVID Angels. So why are they essential in the COVID fight? The reason for that in a bit. I will also tell you why Australian and New Zealand's women's soccer players are celebrating.
Well, Mariel, it seems like you have a lot of updates for us. Go ahead and tell us why.
The curve of the disease remains flat despite several-digit daily new COVID-19 cases recorded in Victoria in recent days. Prime Minister Morrison stressed the cases are a localized outbreak in certain suburbs and not all of Victoria. He commended the Victorian government in managing the outbreak and the support of the federal government and that of other states, acknowledging such development could happen in any state. The country's border remain closed to non-Australian citizens until at least by 2021, although travel arrangements are being planned with New Zealand as well as other Pacific countries. The cabinet meanwhile agreed to maintain the 14-day quarantine requirement for citizens and permanent residents returning from overseas. The Prime Minister still calls on the states to open up internally as he expects the states to announce their own safety precautions. Morrison also approved the adoption of the 2 square meter rule for smaller public venues, which was first implemented in Western Australia. This replaces the 4 square meter rule. Australia has also so far recorded 7,558 confirmed cases. Since January 22, the number of deaths is 104. Now let us take a closer look at the COVID-19 cases in the top 5 countries worst hit by the coronavirus pandemic. The USA, still with the most cases, has now over 2.4 million confirmed coronavirus infections, with more than 124,000 deaths over time. In the state of Arizona, Governor Doug Ducey, where more than 63,000 cases have been reported, urges residents to wear masks. However, he stopped short of issuing any order as COVID-19 infections and hospitalizations continue to surge in the state, and new daily cases around the country climbed to a near record high.
Now, this is Arizona's time of challenge. I don't want there to be any illusion or sugar-coated expectations. We expect that our numbers will be worse next week and the week following in terms of cases and hospitalizations.
Elsewhere in Florida, Governor Rick DeSantis said the Memorial Day holiday weekends and protests likely played a factor in his state's record surge in coronavirus infections. New cases in Florida rose 87% last week to almost 22,000, with the state's positive test rate nearly doubling to 11%. On the other hand, the governor of Texas temporarily halted the state's reopening yesterday as COVID-19 infections and hospitalizations surged in the state. Texas has seen one of the biggest jumps in new cases, reporting over 6,000 in a single day on Monday. While in California, Governor Gavin Newsom on Thursday declared a budget emergency in the most populous U.S. state, blaming expenses and the economic downturn caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. Declaring a budget emergency allows the state to tap into its rainy day funds. California anticipates a $54.3 billion budget deficit due to costs and a drop in revenue linked to the pandemic. Government experts believe more than 20 million Americans could have contracted the coronavirus, 10 times more than official accounts, indicating many people without symptoms have or have had the disease, senior administration officials said. Meanwhile, Brazil at number 2 now has over 1.2 million confirmed coronavirus cases, surpassing the 54,000 mark for death cases, but with more than 679,000 recoveries, thanks be to God.
Well, here's something to cheer for. In Bolivia, hundreds of volunteers have banded together to help fellow citizens who are unable to get medical treatment amid the pandemic. Dubbed the COVID Angels, they are made up of doctors, nurses, and citizens from other walks of life with a keen interest to help others in one of Latin America's poorest nations. A group of medics from the group have set up a field hospital in Santa Cruz. Their objective is to attend to patients unable to access hospitals that are closed off to treat coronavirus patients. They have also treated frontline workers such as police who may have been exposed to the novel coronavirus.
The Angeles del COVID is a multidisciplinary group of volunteers. We're about 380 people from different professions. People who are dedicated, people who want to do their bit and make a difference during this health crisis.
Among the services they offer is coronavirus testing. Although the facilities available to COVID Angels is limited, they do a lot with the little they have and have a strong local following. Bolivia has recorded over 27,400 coronavirus cases and more than 870 deaths. In France, Orly Airport in Paris resumed commercial flight operations today after 3 months of shutdown due to the coronavirus pandemic. Fire brigade services marked the day, honoring the Paris Porto flight that was the first to take off at 6 a.m. Passengers can no longer enter the terminals with non-flying companions. Wearing masks is required. Alcohol gel dispensers are available across the terminals, and floor markings urge social distancing. Thermal cameras are in place at the arrival area where passengers with a temperature of 38 degrees or above can benefit from a medical consultation, but will not be forced to go under quarantine. Around 74 departures and arrivals in total were scheduled for today, compared to a usual load of 600 flights a day, according to Orly Airport. Only domestic flights and flights to and from Shenzhen countries and France overseas departments will be flying out of Orly.
Australian and New Zealand's women's soccer players let out almighty roars, burst into applause, and pumped their fists in celebration in the early hours today after their country's joint bid for the 2023 Women's World Cup was confirmed. Football ferns Erin Naylor, Hannah Wilkinson, and Annalie Longo erupted with joy as they crowded around a laptop watching the video stream. While Matilda's players sitting with as one, bid team also jumped in celebration. FIFA President Gianni Infantino made the announcement early today. Both Football Federation Australia or FFA and New Zealand Football or NZF had emphasized the boost that hosting the tournament would provide for the development of the game in the Asian and Oceania confederations. Meanwhile, in NBA, Atlanta Hawks guard Vince Chapter officially announced his retirement from professional basketball on Thursday. Carter, widely regarded as one of the greatest dunkers of all time, had previously said the 2019-20 NBA campaign would be his last, but had not addressed his playing status since the NBA suspended its season in mid-March due to the COVID-19 outbreak. Carter's retirement comes after an NBA record 22-season career during which his high-flying dunks made him one of the game's top players in his prime. Carter played for 8 teams during his career, but will be most remembered for his time with the Toronto Raptors, where he put the Canadian city on the basketball map and earned the nickname Air Canada for his feats above the rim. Carter also ranks 22nd on the NBA's all-time scoring list. He also helped USA basketball win gold medals at the 2000 Sydney Olympics and 2003 FIBA Americans Tournament. Back to you, Diego and Darlene.
Thank you for that report, Mariel. And I hope you guys are safe over where you are, and we'll hear more from you in the coming days.
And those are the reasons behind the news, June 26, 2020. I am Harleen Delgado. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
And I am Angelo Castro III. Because we need to know, we will always ask why. Have a great evening.